Hey, Captain Mike here from Forbes Fishing, and in today's episode we're going to make this roof rack, and this is an ARE CX HD cap on my 2024 GMC Sierra HD. And you can see I use this rooftop rack to haul some stuff, a ladder, some materials. I'm messing it up a little bit, this trim piece, but today we're going to make this a little bit more useful, so stay tuned. And this is a Rhino roller, part 43131. And this is, I think it's the 50-inch model. And if you look at it from the side, it's about a 3/16 wall. Apologize, I can't remember the schedule. Of pipe, aluminum pipe with a plastic sleeve around it. And the bracketry consists of some 3/16 inch steel, actually I'm sorry, 1/8 inch steel brackets with, it's probably metric, but equivalent to like 3/8 hardware, with some solid, feels like it's ABS plastic, but not exactly sure, bushings that go inside the pipe. And these are going to bolt to your rack. I had a hard time what would fit the ARE rack because the ARE company is not really sharing who makes the rack for them. I'm not sure if they make it or not. But the rack itself, and I'll show a close-up of it, is an oblong extrusion. So the distance to center of where you would want to mount something is pretty important, because the T slot needs to be in the center of the bracket. If this portion of the bracket were too narrow, we wouldn't have enough room even to drill like a new hole. You wouldn't want to have your bolt like be all the way on the end here, right? And it turns out, by luck, this one's dead center. The rack itself comes with this type of hardware because it mounts to a specific Rhino platform. So it would go like this and get through bolted on their platform, but we're not using it like that. We're using it in a T-slot system, so it's going to be a little different. I found these beauties on Amazon, stainless steel. What I like about them, well, one, the stainless steel T-nuts, but then the top portion, the hoop itself, isn't that tall. Another one of my goals was to not make this whole roof rack monstrosity add too much to my height, because I could still fit into car washes, and I kind of like doing that. Obviously, you can see these bolts are super long, so we're going to end up needing to cut them to the length we want. But these are going to be a nice way to attach this rack to a T-slot system. So this is going to go in the extrusion, and obviously it's going to poke up through this hole. We're going to need to drill this out. These are metric 8, but a 5/16 drill should work just perfect to remount that hole. All right, the tools we're going to need to do this are pretty basic and may be a little different based on how you're going to mount yours. But if you're going with the T-slots that I recommend, you're going to need to cut these to length. So you're gonna need a Sharpie to mark them. You're going to need some kind of cutting device. A hacksaw will certainly work. I'm going to use a cutoff wheel. And you're also going to want a nut, the same thread and pitch as the bolts themselves, because we're going to mark these, cut them, and once you run the nut back over the threads, you're going to have a nice clean thread there. You're going to want a drill bit, 5/16, chuck to your drill to drill out these holes to fit the T-slot bolts. And I'm going to touch up those with a little bit of spray paint just so that these don't rust and drip rust onto my truck cab. The ARE cap requires a metric Allen key to get some of the hardware off, existing hardware off. And I found that a pair of needle nose pliers makes it easier to get that rubber filler trim piece out of the extrusion. So that's it. Let's get started. Place the bracket into your vise and use a 5/16 drill bit to remount the hole. These brackets with a little bit of spray paint right here so that these holes don't rust. I do it from the underside, it won't get as much overspray on the top. There's a little bit of prep to do on the rack before we can measure those studs. I'm gonna have to take this end cap off, set that aside. I'm gonna loosen this keeper here. And this is the ARE standard tie down, which I'm still gonna use. You only get 4 of those keepers in that kit, or those tie down loops. So I'm just going to slide this to my center. This is going to be my center tie down. I guess if you want to buy a second kit, you could do that too. And we're just going to do a test measurement here. You know, when you look at the different kits online, this is as if it was made for it. I mean, this flat piece is right up against. This is like, it couldn't be any more perfect. Okay, here I'm just measuring the height of what I want to cut this bolt off. And I know I'm going to have a little washer under here, so I'm going to give myself a little bit more room. Okay, I have that T-slot stud in the vise, and you can see I put the net on here and threaded it all the way down past where I'm going to be cutting. Using your file, just clean up the edge of the bolt. Perfect. Just got back from test fitting to make sure this bolt was the right height. And now I'm going to transfer the measurements onto this other bolt so I can make 2 the same size. Just make sure when you're measuring and marking these, you take into account what you're using to cut them with. A hacksaw blade has almost no kerf width, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. But the cutting wheel I'm using will take an 1/8 inch of material out. So when I'm marking this one with the thought of using the cutting wheel, and I'm just going to put the wheel right in the middle of my marks, and that should leave me the right height. I forgot to mention you're going to need some hand tools to tighten up the bolt on this bracket. And what I did was for that inner hex nut, I snugged it up just enough to where this will spin, but I don't have any play. And I think that'll be perfect. Alright, for final assembly, I'm going to stick my T-nut in, and it kind of helps if you still have your needle nose in your pocket, because you could hold that guy up. Set our bracket on top. Got our washer. Once you get thread started, keep it loose and slide it into the tube. And I'm just going to measure to get this guy centered. 4.5 on this side. Three and three quarters. All right, I like that. Just gonna snug this up. That ain't going anywhere. Just do the other side here. While I'm here, I'll put my end cap back on. So you can see how this bracket is like perfect fit for the ARE oval extruded top. I mean, that hole was center, and look, the bracket's actually touching, so it's resting some of its weight on the edge of this extrusion, so it's like perfect. Cut these filler pieces with a pair of scissors and put them back in. I am going to mount the other two hold downs up forward, probably on the outsides. When I cut those bolts, the bracket won't be present, so I'm not going to cut them as long as I did for these back here. Here's what it looks from the back. The side. Probably could have went with another couple inches. I think they may have a 52, or you could just get a real long one and cut it to whatever length you want. Here's the real test. Hey, if you enjoyed this content, please hit the like button, consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you, and tight lines.